If you stick around to the end of this video, I have a special gift for you. Wagwan everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Winston P. Strategist, and on this video, we're going to talk about dispatching. Let's go. Now, if this is your first time here, I always like to introduce myself so you guys can know who I am. Again, my name is Winston P. I'm a carrier. I have my own DOT, my own MC number. I've been driving for about 6 years. I've been in the business for about 7 years. Before I was driving, I was a service writer, and before that, I was a tech, changing oil and different things like that. So if you're a technician, if you're a mechanic, you know what I'm talking about. If you know anything about service writing, you know I used to do it for a small truck repair shop. I handle all the bills and different things like that. So I have different, areas of experience inside the trucking industry. And on this video, my main thing is just to give you my perspective, my experience. I don't want you to think that I know everything. I definitely don't. And if you know somebody that does know everything, please take me to them. Now, this video is actually going to be a course breaking down to you what dispatching is. All right. And guys, I'm giving you a ton of value. People would charge you thousands of dollars for what I'm giving away to you for free. So I need you to stick around to the end of the video. I'm going to say it from the top. Make sure you're commenting, liking, subscribing, all of that good stuff. That's the only way these videos are going to get shown across the algorithm. So I really appreciate you guys. I'm going to say that ahead of time. And just to show you my appreciation, that's why I'm dropping these gems right on this channel. So let's jump right into it. Now, the number one thing I need you to understand about being a dispatcher is that you have two different types. Number one, an independent dispatcher, and number two, a dispatcher that's working for a carrier. The most popular one is going to be the independent dispatcher, but I'm going to deal with the dispatchers that's working for carriers first. This type of dispatcher is not an entrepreneur. They work a 9 to 5. They show up at an office every single day, or they might even be remote, and they just do and fulfill what the job duties require, and they just go home and that's it. These type of dispatchers have shifts that they work, so they could be working mid shift, overnight, or even the morning. It just depends on what the agreement is between that type of dispatcher and the carrier that they're working for. Now, the second and most popular option is to be an independent dispatcher. This is somebody who's an entrepreneur. They're a free agent. They can work for anybody. They work any hours they want. 9 times out of 10, they're going to be remote, and they set their own rates and prices on what they charge. This is going to be the most popular form of dispatching that everybody's familiar with. You see it all over the internet. It's a ton of people selling courses like, hey, click this link in my bio, get started today, and you can be, an entrepreneur making hundreds of thousands of dollars. That type of thing is what people are going to be telling you. Now, I'm going to be the bad guy because I'm going to tell you the good news and the bad news. Which one do you want first? If you're anything like me, I know you want to know all of the ins and outs. You want to know everything up front. So I'm going to go with the bad news first. All right. Being an independent dispatcher is not what people make it to be. All right. It is a very rough job. All right. You don't know when you're going to get a phone call. You got to be by your phone 24/7. And if you're not an organized person, this type of business can be a nightmare for you. Now, let's balance that out with some good news. If you are an organized person, if you don't mind working and being on call for random hours in the day, then this may be the best thing that you've ever touched. I should have titled this video 5 steps towards being a dispatcher, but we're just going to flow with it anyway. So the second thing that we need to talk about is what is the difference between a dispatcher and a broker. Number one, a $75,000 bond. And number two, the responsibilities. A $75,000 bond is required for any freight broker that wants to go direct to shippers and move their freight. And they have a ton of responsibilities. For example, paying the carriers and making sure that they meet all the insurance requirement necessary to run a brokerage. If you're a dispatcher, you don't have those type of responsibilities. Your job is to simply be an advocate or be a mediator between the carrier and the broker. Think of a dispatcher as somebody whose job is to simply just manage relationships and just small amounts of paperwork on a day-to-day basis. That paperwork can be simply invoices or proof of deliveries coming from the driver. Now, because there's different levels to dispatching, everybody's going to have their own twist on it because every carrier does not run their company the same exact way. That's what makes the trucking industry a complicated subject to talk about. So how do you go from knowing nothing at all to actually making money in this type of industry? Number one, you have to land a carrier. And number two, you got to be able to help them find loads. Sounds simple? Too good to be true? It is. Even though that is the basics of what you're going to be doing, it's a lot of moving parts that we got to talk about. For example, where do you find carriers? If the first thing that came to your mind is social media or maybe running ads or Facebook or something like that, instead of going out looking for carriers, think of ways to get carriers to come to you. Now ask yourself this question. What is a trucking company looking for? Freight. Exactly. So if you have freight, you have the carrier. Now, I need to explain that a little bit more because that puts you on the level of being a broker. Now, what I mean by having freight is being connected to brokers who have different lanes and different opportunities, or knowing how to negotiate or getting on load boards and finding freight. Off the top, though, load boards are going to be the roughest place to find freight. Typically, people will run their businesses off of a load board, but the number one thing a load board is designed to do is help you to network. Once you land a load with a broker the first time, make sure you stay connected to that person and try to get them to give you that lane a lot more consistent. The goal is to have like a dedicated lane or consistent freight, because that's how you get paid as a dispatcher. If that truck is not moving, you're not getting paid. So if you want to become a dispatcher, you need to have the ability to find freight, negotiate, talk to brokers, and network. Now let's talk about negotiating, because this is one of the most important parts of being a dispatcher. And a lot of people will explain it to you as being able to negotiate with brokers, but I'm going to be the first one to tell you that as a dispatcher, you have to be able to negotiate with carriers as well. Typically, dispatchers would be asking anywhere from about 6% to about 12%. 12% is the highest I've ever seen, and 6% would be entry level or something like that. You can also negotiate a set amount or a set amount with percentage. You could even do something like percentages or charge for additional services. We're going to get into services next, but let me show you how to speak to a broker step by step. All right, guys, so I'm about to play this recording of me communicating with a broker, and I'm going to break it down step by step of, how you can approach a conversation, how you negotiate. So you can take this as a blueprint, you can remix it, do whatever you want to do with it. But I just wanted to provide you some sort of guidance so you can use it.
Work on this, Josh.
Hey, how you doing? You said Josh?
Yes.
Hey, nice to meet you, Josh. I'm calling about this Georgia to Knoxville, Tennessee.
You know what? Actually, I think that Knoxville one actually just got booked, but we do have a couple more going up to Tennessee.
Can you find one that beats?
Have another.
You got one that beats that rate?
What would you be looking for? We got it's just so it's 45,000 pounds. It's going to be no tarp mulch. With the mulch, they really don't pay a ton. Actually, you know what? I think they did have two Knoxville, so we might be able to get you another one. What would you be looking for on that Knoxville one?
I know usually that mulch is a little higher than 44. Normally, I'll be riding right at 80 sometimes, especially if it's wet. If we're going up to Knoxville, if you can get me around 850, that would be fair.
You can use this calculator to negotiate rates, and that's what I was showing right here. Like, if you're booking a load, you want to make sure you calculate your deadhead and you're making, the maximum amount that you can make, right? So if you're the dispatcher, your job is to help that truck make as much money as possible, because the more the truck grows, it's just the more money you're going to make. So you want to make sure you get every bit that you possibly can. And that's what this calculator is designed to do. I'm going to make sure I have a link down below for that so you can test it out, and it is free.
We could probably get you to 850. Let me check something real quick. What time, you have an open flatbed?
Yes, I do. Are you needing a 48 or a 53 foot, or does it matter?
No, 48 will work. They keep it right at 18 pallets. And they usually try to keep it right at 45,000 with the 18 pallets, but like you said, you know how it is. So,
right.
Let me see. If I think they have two of those. And what time would you be looking to pick up down there in Glenville?
Okay, in Glenville, is it Cummings or, because I'm seeing Cummings here.
Cummings to Knoxville?
Yes, I see Cummings, Georgia to Knoxville, Tennessee.
Let me see if they still have that one. Because I'm not sure that was on the list this morning, although that is a little longer. They sent me the short hauls. Let me double check to see if they got let me check to see if the one.
So what's happening right here is that I called in about this load, right? And the broker is telling me that, I'm not sure, where you're getting this load from. And you're going to run into that, okay? A lot of times loads are gone and they're just left on the board. And some brokers may even do that on purpose just to, get you to call in and, they may be up to something, right? So that's just the nature of the load board. But I'm glad I was able to catch this so you guys can actually see this side of it too.
Coming out of Glenville, Georgia as well.
Okay, yeah, that one I didn't see.
Okay. And I was going to say, I'm sure you're a little closer to Cummings, Georgia than you are to Glenville.
Yes. We're pretty much in Atlanta. So, the deadhead going up to Cummings is why, I was calculating it because I have to include that as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
A little closer.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, real quick, let me see if they got. Let me see if they still got the Cummings, Georgia, and Knoxville. They got a couple locations down there for the mulch. So, real quick, let me check your MC number. Transport.
That's correct.
Okay. Let me see if we're set up. If not, I can always get you a carrier packet over while I'm waiting for the answer for that.
Yeah, we are not set up, but we can get set up pretty quick. Are you guys using RMIS or just directly to my email?
Yeah, we're using RMIS. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what was your name again? I'm sorry.
My name is Winston.
Winston. Okay. Let me send that one over to you, and then Winston, this number you called me on the 1 ending in 9218. Is that your best callback number?
Yes, that is the best callback number.
So let me go back to some of these slides really quick, guys, because I want to make sure you are tracking and you really understand what this slide was meant to do. So let me kind of back up here. That way I can sort of explain this because you're looking, at the middle of the class and everything before you were not aware of. So let me kind of break down what you're actually looking at. Okay. So this right here is, when I received the carrier packet and I filled it out. Okay. So I received this through something that we use called RMIS. Okay. You want to fill out that carrier packet ASAP. You do not want to move slow whenever you're trying to lock a load in. Okay. And typically I've always had a great experience with brokers. Once they send me that carrier packet, they would normally hold the load for me to move it. So I haven't had a lot of experiences where, it took me too long, but I definitely want to make an emphasis on that. Fill out those carrier packets fast as possible. That way you don't lose this load. So let me move myself out the way here. Let me kind of just put myself right here. Okay. So let's talk about these steps really quick. So, we can all be on the same page here. Okay. So number one thing when you're dealing with a broker, the first thing that you want to do is you want to run a broker's credit check. Okay. If you are doing business in this space, right, things can get, out of hand really, really quick. Imagine running a load and not getting paid. Right. That's what you want to avoid by running a broker's credit check. I won't be breaking that down in this video, but I definitely want to make you aware that you need to be running a broker's credit check before you decide to run any load for any broker. Okay. Next thing, you want to negotiate your rates. All right. And if you saw what I did in there, I talked about, my experience, I presented myself very professional and knowledgeable. And that means a lot to a broker, believe it or not, because from their position, they don't want to be scammed. They don't want to deal with carriers who, sound, like they don't know what they're talking about, or inexperienced carriers. They don't want the liability because that's how they get paid too. So, you do want to present yourself in a conversation like you know what you're talking about. And even if you don't know what you're talking about, don't sound like you don't know what you're talking about, right? Just get on the phone and be confident and, just don't say too much, right? Let them talk. But, if you saw how I carried myself, I made sure I interject in there that, hey, I hauled this stuff before. I know what it weighs and my deadhead, so I presented myself, with business ethics. So they know like, hey, I'm counting my money, right? I'm not one of those. I'm not just anybody, right? So you want to make sure that you do that. The next thing is you do want to accept that rate con because they will send it to you. You want to make sure you sign off of it. Don't forget, to just accept that rate con and check it, read through it, because there's going to be some important information on there. And if you don't know what a rate con is, it is simply just a confirmation on what that load pays and basically the agreement between the carrier and the broker that it will be ran by you. Okay. The next thing is you want to dispatch that driver. Okay. So remember, your job as a dispatcher is to be the advocate. You're just being the glue for everybody. Okay. So if you're speaking for the carrier, if you're their mouthpiece and you're talking to a broker, well, guess what? The driver has to now receive that message because you're not driving the load. The driver is. So as soon as you get off that phone with that broker, you got to call that driver like, hey, I got this load. It's picking up here. Where is your truck right now? Where are you stationed? Where did you park? So, all that information, of course, you would have already wanted to know because you're the dispatcher. So therefore you have to know where the truck is at all times anyway, right? But you still want to do your check because sometimes, guys would move around and different things like that. It's a lot going on at one time when you're talking about dispatching a truck, and you always want to just do your checks and, just make sure you have everything, under control. The last thing that you would do in these steps is simply, submit a POD. And the POD is the proof of delivery. And that's how you would get paid. When a load is dropped, you want to send in the paperwork proving that the load was dropped. Simple as that. And that is how you get paid. Okay. Number one, you want to run that broker's credit check. Number two, you want to negotiate those rates. Number three, you want to accept that rate con, right? Number four, dispatch that driver. That's just another way of me saying communicate. And last but not least, get paid. All right. If you enjoyed that slide, that came from the dispatching class that I offer. And if you want to check it out, I'll have the link down below. I'm accepting donations for this class at $10 or higher. So whatever you're able to give, I really appreciate it. Now let's talk about services. This is something that I think is a big secret in the dispatching space that a lot of people are not. Did I say that right? A big secret in the dispatching space. Okay, cool. Listen, guys, as a dispatcher, you can charge for services. All right. I'm going to give you a big secret. When we're talking about services as a carrier, I have no say in that matter. There are certain things that you have to do. So as a dispatcher, if you're adding additional services to your company, you're going to make yourself a lot more, well-rounded, and you're going to potentially be able to save a carrier a ton of money. So the chances of them doing business with you is going to be a lot higher. Let's say, for example, you're a dispatcher, but you offer tax services. Maybe your background is taxes. Okay. You can bring things to the table. That's what makes dispatching so cool, is that if you have other skills that you've been doing for years, offer it in a package and make yourself just way more valuable. And a lot of times that's how you get business. People hear about you word of mouth, right? Let's just say, for example, you're doing taxes for a carrier. Well, they may tell their buddy like, hey, this person is doing my taxes and they're my dispatcher. Well, now you're going to get passed on to their buddy, and you might get passed on to the next person. And now you can kind of offer your services because you have people coming to you because you simply know what they need. All right. So that's the best thing about, just being a dispatcher, is that you can actually put so much into it that a lot of people don't tell you. You could be an accountant, maybe you're a bookkeeper, different things like that. And that's exactly what I cover in the class. So, I go over so many services that we need, and don't be afraid to drop down in the comment section. Anything you want to know, email me and we can talk about it, guys. I don't charge people to talk to me. People reach out to me all the time. And I like to tell people that because, if I don't know what you need, then, I don't think it's fair to be charging you for something that, I don't know. So I don't do consultations, but I do, give out as much information as I possibly can. That way, trucking is already expensive as is, right? So that way you can save a ton of money up front. And maybe on the back end, you can kind of come pat me on my back like, man, I appreciate that. The information I just gave you is sufficient to get you started on your journey. But I do want to be very, very transparent with you guys. Let's say you decide, to go take these classes that I offer so you can, get started. I just want to be honest. I don't care, what course that you take. This industry is about experience. And I would rather, you be creative, like just networking with truck drivers and even volunteering and saying, hey, I'll work for you. I won't charge anything. I just want to learn the industry. I just want to familiarize myself with paperwork or the day in and day out of what you guys deal with. That's going to really, really bring you a lot more value than anybody can offer you. Okay. There's no greater way. I can promise you that is the best way to really understand this industry. I don't care who's selling you anything. All right. I don't want you to, think that you're just going to click a link and magically understand everything. That is not how I work. Okay. Some people don't make enough to even do this full time. All right. And the number one thing is going to be freight. And I'm going to have a video that will introduce you to freight and kind of help you understand it. That way you can grasp, okay, what is freight? How does it work? What are the basics? And I think that is the most important thing. If you know the basics, you can, build up to actually making a ton of money in this industry and probably go a lot further than a lot of people out there right now. Now, I didn't want this video to be too long and drawn out, especially, with us talking about dispatching. This is something that's going to take time for you to really understand especially if you don't have the opportunity to go partner up with somebody. So if you want to see a part 2 to this video, please comment down below part 2. All right, guys, thank you for rocking with me to the end of this video. And as promised, I got a special gift for you. I created a trucking dictionary for you with 92 terms. These are the most common terms and words that you're going to need. So get familiar with this dictionary so you can go out there and win. Because I understand how tough the trucking business can be, I wanted to help you elevate your game. That way you can be well prepared. Now, if you got a ton of value out of this video and you want more, please comment, subscribe, and like, and make sure you hit that bell notification so you can see when I upload my next video.